These videos were created for you to watch along. They'll teach you about client tracks so you know what's going on. So best of luck with all of your data. Now here's your HMIS system administrator.
Hi everyone. In this section we'll be going through privacy settings. Clients have several options for if or when they choose to share. We'll go through the definitions, functional use cases, and some examples. First, let's recap on some basic concepts. When you sign into the system, you are always part of an organization or agency, sometimes referred to as a security organization. When we mark something as restrict to my org, we're talking about restricting the data so that just those logged in under that agency can see it. So here you see I'm logged in as my training organization. Anything I mark as restrict to org, someone has to be signed in as my training organization to see it. When we talk about consent to share, we're talking about sharing to organizations that are part of the Georgia HMIS MOU. We have that single shared MOU with everyone. Second, when you're signed in under your specific account with its own user ID. The system will always display the data you entered. For those of you who enter data in multiple organizations, this is something you'll have to keep in mind when you're checking for security. Also, there's a difference between your transactional data, like your enrollments, your services, and the privacy setting for the client record itself. The client record restriction, which is under Edit Client Information Release, this controls the ability for other people to search and prevent duplicate client records. And so it also acts like a main gatekeeper for other transaction sharing. Transaction restrictions, and that means for services, enrollments, or assessments, or anywhere where you see the restrict to org plugin, this right here. You're just either marking as consent to share or restrict to my organization for just that piece of information. So here on this screen, if I mark this as restrict to my organization, I am only restricting this piece of data, nothing else. So those are our basic reminders and basic definitions. So let's look at some examples and use cases. We're going to start with existing clients since they're much simpler to work with. And here, existing just means that they're already in the system. You can search and find them. Someone has already seen them. Someone has already enrolled them. If clients want to keep sharing at just demographics only, so other case managers can search for them, see that they exist, but they don't really want to share any enrollment history, services, assessments, anything like that, we're going to make sure to keep the consent to share basic identifying information only. That's going to prevent any project data from being seen by other organizations, and so you'll have to be logged in as that agency to see it. For existing clients, some of them will consent to share all of their information, and by updating the information release to share basic identifying information and shared project data, that means that the client's enrollment history and assessment data, transaction data that they've already consented to share will open up. And so to clarify, information like case notes, barriers, or other assessments or transactions that are already marked as restrict to org, they will not be shared by opening up the record. It is just information that the client has already consented to share. Now, if we have clients that want to share some of the information, that's when it gets a little bit trickier. So typically in share some information, in general, they'll still want to share basic identifying information and project data, but they'll want to selectively restrict something. That could be a particular service, a particular enrollment, a particular assessment. In those cases, what we're doing is we're on that very particular piece of data that the client does not want to share, we're marking that as restrict to my organization. So here I just restricted this contact, this piece of information, to only those that are logged in as my training organization can see it. If a client ever changes their mind, so they they were sharing before, they didn't want to share, or now they don't. They want to share some piece of information. If we're looking at individual transactions, we can go in and mark that as consent to share. If we're looking at the client record, maybe they were sharing everything and they did not renew, they didn't renew that consent. So we want to mark that back down to sharing basic identifying information only. Now there's a level of restriction that's for new clients only. So when they first come see your agency, they've never been seen before, and they say absolutely zero sharing. They don't even want anyone else to be able to search for them. For that, when you do a project intake, you always want to choose add new client. And that means that you're going to be getting a client record that no one else is using, no one else has seen. And then once you've gone through the intake workflow for that, you're going into the information release and you're marking that as restrict to my organization. You'll see some additional warnings, and that if I didn't create this client record, you'll get warnings saying that you will lose access to it. This is something that was migrated under one of the moves from pathways from the old database. You will be prevented from saving this, as you will cut off everyone's access to this record. Last, there is an ability for clients to opt out of participating in any research, and this is regardless of any privacy settings they have for anything else. We have that in our document check feature, which is nested under Edit Client. So we'll go to Document Check, Add New, and we'll choose the Opt Out of Research. We'll add the fields that are required. We can keep the information date there. If we have the signed consent form in a scanned version, we can upload that file with this document check, but it's not required. And when we click Save, we've uploaded and identified that the client does not consent for any type of research. So we covered the different sharing scenarios and just some key reminders. If someone wants to share demographics only, we want to keep that at share basic identifying information, basic demographics. They can search for them. If a new client wants to prevent all sharing, we have to create a new client record and choose Restrict to My Organization for the new one we just created. And last, case notes, barriers, and protected agencies have their transactions defaulted to Restrict to My Organization. So regardless of what other information release settings are here, if a transaction is marked as Restrict to Org, it will not be shared. Thank you, everyone.